How many of you here have bought a sanitary pad on your own? As in, you were not accompanying anyone, you just bought it by yourself. Okay, let me slightly rephrase the question. How many men here have bought sanitary pads on their own, be it for their friends or families? Okay, thank you. It was March 2018, and I was in an exam hall. The exam hall consisted of students from grade 6, 7, and 9. Ironically, it was also my health exam when I got my periods, inside the exam hall during the last hour. I could not go to the washroom either, so I had no other choice but to sit down and complete my answer script. As I stood out to ask for an extra answer sheet, I realized that there was a blood stain on the chair, and the two junior bhais next to me also saw the red stains. दिदी, तपाईँको चेयरमा रगत लागेको छ। तपाईँ त रगत चुहाउँदै हिँड्नु हुँदो रहेछ। छ्या दिदी, अलिक उता बस्नु है। Painful insults were thrown at me. Insults that damaged my self-esteem right then and there. Insults that cost me an unanswered question paper because I was trembling to the mockery I just received. Insults that made me despise the color red, and above all, insults that made me felt afraid and ashamed of being a woman who bleeds. The day did not end there. My male peers who had studied the same menstruation topic for their health exams laughed and sneered at the comments passed by the bhai from grade 6. No amount of education could change their perception on period blood. As I walked out of the exam hall, they met my eyes with utter repugnance, while my female friends looked at me and sympathized. Period blood is the only blood that is not born from war, yet it is the one that disgusts people the most. Unfortunately, the infirmary did not have a spare skirt either, so I was left to do with my own bloodstained skirt. I put the stained part to the front, put blue ink all over it so that it seemed as if an ink pot had spilled over me. It was hurtful to know that by the end of the day, almost everyone from my class knew about this incident. I remember going home and bursting into tears. I remember my mother asking me what the matter was, and I remember my small 6-year-old brother trying to comfort me with whatever limited comforting vocabulary he had. And that is when I had a striking awareness. My brother could have been in the place of the bhai next to me in the exam hall. Would he have laughed at me the same way? Would he have asked me to distance myself so that my impurity does not ruin his day? Or would he have sneered the same way my male peers did? Or would he have simply pretended not to see the blood-stained chair? And honestly, why would he not feel disgusted by the sight of blood, the sight of redness? And no, I'm not talking about the color red, the color of vermilion that marks the beginning of a union. Neither am I talking about the color red, the color of blessing on a Dashain morning. Nor am I talking about the color red that celebrates women in Tijtar. And neither am I talking about the colored red of the flowers of the Ashoka tree under which Princess Sita sat. And most definitely, I'm not talking about the color red that marks the joy of a childbirth. I'm talking about the color red, the color of seclusion, the color red that becomes the embodiment of disgust, the color red that segregates from piety. How could I expect my brother to feel comfortable at that redness? How could I expect my brother to see the beauty redness encapsulated when all he sees in the house is me and my mother turned into impure women 3 days every month, secluded from normal life? Had he not seen me and my mother not entering the kitchen, not going to the temples and not watering the plants? What had I done to make my brother aware about menstruation? How could I expect my brother to feel comfortable at the sight of redness when everything about menstruation is untalked of in this household and all of this is a taboo? I'd always blamed others for not being able to treat menstruation normally, but I'd never taken the steps to educate and eradicate the taboos from my own household. And that is when I started being a teacher to my brother. Step by step, I started teaching him about the bodily function of people with uterus, about how menstruation occurs, and how it is completely normal and is not a topic of shame. It took him some time to open up and be comfortable with it, but little by little we were getting there. Until one fine day, my brother came home saying he gave his jacket to a friend who had stained her pants. My happiness knew no bounds, and I never felt more proud of my brother. The day felt like an accomplishment, as if I truly succeeded in building his values. Primarily, it made me feel safe and had comfort to know that perhaps everyone is capable of treating menstruation normally, and that hopefully, someday, many other Krishas won't have to disguise blood as ink anymore and will be spared from getting insulted for bleeding. Unfortunately, I still do not cook during my periods, but at least now my family members know that it is not a sin to touch flowers while menstruating and that I'm not a sinner for drinking water from the same glass my brother drank water from. I might not be able to change the dynamics in my family, but I'm glad to say that this taboo ends with us. It ends with me, my brother, my cousins, and my extended family's cousins. My period activism started with my brother and has now expanded into me joining a digital social movement called Untold Period Stories, where we shift narratives surrounding periods through art, education, storytelling, and advocacy. We now have male members coming forth with their stories on how they'd like to change narratives surrounding periods in their households. We have hosted open mics and live painting sessions with professional artists, both menstruators and non menstruators, on menstrual activism. We are also making a short film that shows the economical burden possessed by the 13% luxury tax levied on period products. Period product accessibility might be easy for some, but a huge population is still deprived of it. And we, as members of this society, have a collective responsibility in ensuring that period poverty does not result in any more health crises. As for now, I've never felt more powerful about being a woman who bleeds. My blood will sow the seeds for tomorrow's prominent leaders in the world, and no amount of laughter can take away my resilience. No amount of insults can make me despise the color red because I, as the same woman who bleeds, am reclaiming redness. No amount of stains can shame any woman, and if my impurity really concerns one's ego, I am not sorry for being a sinister. Thank you.